Thanks everyone for being here. My name is Rafat Ali. I'm the editor, publisher, founder of Paid Content. Some of you know about it. If you don't, you should definitely check it out. We have a short time, so we'll jump right in. We are very fortunate to have Dennis Crowley, who's the founder of Foursquare.
Co-founder.
Co-founder. And before that, he started Dodgeball, which was kind of like a precursor to Foursquare, which was bought by Google. And so, Dennis, if you give a little bit of background of what you've done in your short life till now.
Yeah, I've actually been working in the location-based services field for almost 10 years. I used to work at a company called Vindigo. Has anyone ever used Vindigo on their Palm? Yeah, it was awesome, right? Yeah, so I used to work at Vindigo and then went to grad school at NYU. They have a program called ITP and started tinkering around with this idea called Dodgeball, which was really just a way to know where your friends are all the time. And that was a thesis project we developed at NYU, and we eventually sold it to Google, spent 2 years at Google before we decided just to move on and work on other things. And yeah, took a little bit of time after that before starting Foursquare, and now we're about a year into Foursquare.
What, if anybody, well, everybody's looking to sell their company to Google, what would your advice be to the first-time entrepreneurs who are selling to Google?
Oh, I mean, I think Google was it's a great place to take ideas and get things done. We were there very early, like right after the IPO, and so I think it was just, we had some difficulty getting some of the things done that we wanted to. I mean, if it's when we were out trying to raise money for Dodgeball, and we were having a very difficult time doing it, and so the only other alternative we had was going to Google, and it was a great opportunity. It's just I think we were just there at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm. And so, what was the genesis from Dodgeball to Foursquare?
Well, one of the things with Dodgeball was that it was maybe one of the first of these mobile social services in the U.S. And one of the things that we realized, about a year into it, is it was a lousy one-player experience, that you really needed to have a whole bunch of friends on it that were using it all the time to get some type of value out of it. And one of the things we explicitly did with Foursquare was to think about, all right, well, how can we make location services that are supposed to be social interesting to people before they have all of their friends on them? So that's where a lot of the game mechanics came from. Like, let's make it fun for people to go and check in by themselves. So
and were you building, when you're building, did you have iPhone in the mind at that point?
Yeah, well, I mean, the iPhone was the first platform that it was really easy to develop location services for. And so that's how Naveen and Naveen's my co-founder, we teamed up while we were both at other jobs and said, hey, let's try to build something like Dodgeball, but we'll do it on the iPhone. We'll do it with maps, and we'll see how it works.
And so now you have the app on all the major platforms, including Android. BlackBerry just launched.
Yeah, we launched BlackBerry last week, and we built the BlackBerry version ourselves, and we built the iPhone version ourselves, and then we created an API this summer, and we had developers make us an Android client, and they made us a Palm client, and we're seeing all sorts of interesting maps mashups. We had someone create an OS X desktop widget, which is fantastic. Like, people are now checking in on their laptops. We're seeing all sorts of fantastic things from developers.
But actually, we should have asked this before. How many of you do use Foursquare? Okay, so we don't really need to. Do we need to explain it to anybody?
Is anyone totally lost? So no worries. So we're building things for mobile phones that they're supposed to make cities easier to use, and that's kind of a broad thing to say. But they combine friend finders with social city guides to make cities more interesting and make them more interesting to explore to folks. So with Foursquare it's weird because it's a different experience in Munich than it is for me in New York. But in New York, no one makes plans. None of my friends make plans. We all just check in. So you tell Foursquare where you happen to be, and when you have 50 of your friends doing that all the time, you just have this ambient awareness of where everyone happens to be. It's a little bit like Twitter, but it's almost entirely focused on location.
Do you see it scaling beyond sort of the major cities at this point?
Yeah, so we started
which have a higher density and this kind of environment sort of.
Yeah, we started with 10 cities, then we grew to 20, then 50, and 100, and we were just getting so many requests from people, like, please add my city, please add my city. And there were cities that weren't on the roadmap, so we just made some changes to make it work everywhere in the world. And the densest pockets of Foursquare users are in the densest cities. So you see New York and San Francisco and London and LA are usually the largest and most dense areas in terms of usage. But there's pockets all over the place. My parents are 40 minutes outside of Boston, and there's still like a little bit of a Foursquare community taking place there, and it's nice to see it kind of bubble up organically.
And you've raised about $1.5 million in
funding till now.
1.3
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that's enough in terms of your scaling plans for now?
Well, it was really just to get us to this point. Like we thought we're already a bigger company than we thought we would be. I remember, wondering if we were going to break 100,000 users by the end of the year. But now, we're still 7 people that sit around a table that's smaller than this stage here. And with any luck, by the time I get back to New York, we'll be 10 people, and then hopefully by the end of by February, it might be 12 or 15. So a lot of that is just resources are going towards trying to bring some of those folks in, so we can start building better things for users.
So you're saying no more new money. You don't need no more VCs need to approach you today?
Oh, we've been talking to a bunch of folks. Like I think at some point we're going to need to go down that road. But right now we're just focused on, bringing people in that help us build better products.
And in terms of revenues, have you started generating any at this point?
Yeah, we're starting to get a couple checks from folks. So there's 2 immediate ways that we can start monetizing. So we do these we call them specials with local merchants. And so when you go to various places in New York and you check in, you'll get an offer that says, hey, if you're the mayor of this place, which means that you've been there more than anyone else, or if you've been here 3 times or 5 times, you're entitled to a free coffee or a free appetizer or a free glass of wine. And the venues just give these things out to users because users are talking about their places and they're bringing they're bringing their friends to these places. So we've been thinking about we might be able to monetize by collecting maybe monthly fees in order to share some data back with some of those venues at some point. But then we're also starting to do deals with larger media companies, and
you announced one yesterday.
Yeah, we did one with Metro Papers up in Canada. And so a lot of them are just trials. It's like, okay, you guys have a bunch of content. We're doing interesting things with location. Let's see if we can stash some of those nuggets of content all around, and then people unlock them by checking into various spots. So if you happen to be checking in at work, you get a piece of news that happens, that took place around the corner from you. Or if you're checking in at a bus stop, you get information about what was happening in that particular neighborhood. So it's trying to, convince different media partners, not convince them, but to teach them how to use location media in a different and more interesting way.
And do you think newspapers are sort of the most sweet spot for you because they're local, because they have a local knowledge of?
It depends who you're talking to. We've talked to some bands, and bands will say, okay, how can we use Foursquare? It's like, well, why don't we have all the members of the band leave tips about their favorite things to eat and drink and shop and experience in different cities. And so as they tour from city to city, their fans can kind of learn about the places they like to go. Mm-hmm. So we've had, that's real people. Those are band members. And we've talked about, we could do it for characters in a TV show. So hypothetically, all the characters from Gossip Girl could leave content all around New York, and users that are a fan of that show could unlock that stuff as well. So we're having, it's a different challenge for every, for every media property we talk to. So it's different for Metro as it is for a film or for a music label.
How do you make sure that the company isn't just a product feature of checking in? Let's say Yelp just announced their own check-ins, so they're a much bigger play, of course.
Yeah.
With a lot more things and a lot more users. How do you make sure, first you compete against that? What do you think of that? And then just make sure it's not just a product feature. Yeah,
well, I think, the act of checking in, which is, what we call you take out your phone and you say, oh, I'm at DLD, or I'm at the mall, or I'm at wherever it happened to be. That's checking in. And there's a whole bunch of apps, and you could probably name 25 off the top of my head that are doing these things right now. And
you are one of the newer ones.
Yeah, we're one of the newer ones. We're doing the same stuff with Dodgeball, and there's Looped and Brightkite and Google Latitude. And, I think the trick is making it fun for the user to check in. And so this is what we found with Dodgeball. People were checking in all the time, but they weren't getting a lot of value out of it. So some of the fun things that we're trying to do with Foursquare is, reward people for the places they go. So we have these systems. We have a system of points. So every time you check in someplace, you get a couple points for it. And it's like it's like playing Pac-Man. So the more interesting things you do, the higher you move up on the leaderboard. And then we have these little badges that people unlock too, and they're fun and kind of goofy. But if you go to too many karaoke places, you earn the karaoke badge. And if you stay out really late on a Wednesday night, you unlock a school night badge. So it's just it's like a playful interaction with users. But we find them going out of their way and checking into different spots at different times just to see what they get in return, like to see if they unlock any of this digital candy.
So since it's a short session, we will open up to questions. If anybody has one, I guess come up to the mics up here. Meanwhile, I can continue with my questions if nobody has any immediate one. So in terms of, oh, you have one? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, my name is Holger Schmidt. I'm a journalist. Then there's one question. Is Foursquare a game or a social network or both?
It's funny because a lot of people describe it as a game, and it is a game. I mean, people play Foursquare. We look at it as a social utility. Like, we're not trying to build the best game. We're trying to build something that really makes people's lives more interesting and helps them navigate cities a little bit easier. And we're finding that by layering game mechanics on top of that, and people really enjoy using it, and it becomes rather addictive. And the more people that start using it, the more valuable the service happens to become. But I always, we do want to continue to make it fun, but our main goal is to really make amazing products and amazing utility, and then the game is kind of layered on top of that.
Yeah, so the first question is, you said 1.3 million and you're going to be 15 employees quite soon. How long does that, give you? Or are you guys, looking to raise money like all the time?
I'm really surprised that we're at 7 right now. That might sound weird, but we were 5 people for a while, and we were kind of humming along pretty efficiently, and we're growing very quickly. So the usage doubled in the last more than doubled in the last 30 days, and it's been doing that consistently for the last couple months. And when you start to look at those numbers over time, it gets really challenging to keep up with really quickly. So, when we raised money, I was like, wow, $1.3 million, this is going to last us forever. And so now, it might get us to the beginning of the summer, maybe a little bit past there. And we just brought on a general manager that's helping us put together, a kind of an outlook of what to expect the next couple months. So we've been talking to folks, and I think we'll end up doing something rather shortly. But for now, we're just focused on building products and seeing where that goes.
And I think one of the most interesting questions is the sort of differentiation between the mechanism of checking in or specifying a location and the huge amount of products you can actually build around it. Could you share a bit of how Foursquare is going to be different than the others? Because everybody's sort of figuring out their strategy right now, and who knows if Facebook adds check-ins or if Twitter are thinking of adding check-ins. How do you sort of differentiate, and are you more of a platform or more of a series of products that are going to be built on top of this?
Yeah, I don't think we know yet, and we're still figuring that out. So I think check-ins are going to be a commodity. Every app is going to have them, and every app's going to have their own sense of data. And I'm starting to think that the way that if you look at what Facebook Connect did for sharing the social graph across a lot of sites, there might be something like that for check-ins as well, where there's one or more companies that are aggregating that, and then you can just start asking that aggregator for information on where these people happen to be. So we spend a lot of time trying to get the check-in just right, which means fiddling with the iPhone version and fiddling with the BlackBerry version to get the GPS stuff working properly. But really what we want to do is focus on the magic that happens when you check in, because I think that's the most interesting part. So what does it mean that I was at this restaurant a week ago with the same person, or what does it mean that I come here every day at lunch? And trying to use some of that data to surface new recommendations for folks, to try to introduce them to people that they might want to meet, to introduce them to venues that they should probably hit up as well. So I think that the really interesting challenge for us is, what do we do with that data set? And one of the things that we never really had a chance to explore while we were working on Dodgeball at Google was, we knew how interesting the data was, and we just didn't have a chance to really cut it up in interesting ways. And now we just have a lot more people playing and a lot more people participating, and so it's exciting for us. And then as we start to open that up via the API to see what other users will end up creating with our data is going to be really interesting as well.
Great, thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. Between Vindigo, Dodgeball, and Foursquare, you're actually pretty long in the tooth as far as location experience is concerned. Two things. What was a surprise where you made an assumption that people would definitely do this, and they didn't? And on the flip side, you said to yourself an assumption, oh, people would never do this, and you got surprised.
Sure. For Dodgeball or for Foursquare?
For any of them.
Okay,
basically, location in general.
Yeah, well, with Dodgeball started off, it's so funny. It's like, it's such a Dodgeball is such a New York product, because it's all about just getting people to the place, and then things will happen while you're at the place. And so when you look at, sometimes Twitter feels like, oh, it's like Dodgeball without the location part of it. It's just people shouting out. So we always assumed that location was the big part of it, but it's about what people are doing and where they're going and helping people rendezvous. So I think that's one thing we got wrong with Dodgeball. One of the things that we got right, like when we brought Foursquare to South by Southwest last year, when we launched it, Naveen and I are like, this is either going to be the most addictive thing ever for people, like turning life into a game, or we're going to be laughed out of the conference. And so it was a really kind of a crapshoot. But we thought people would really find it exciting and compelling, and it's really taking off in ways that we really didn't anticipate. And it's just the feedback that we're getting from users, where they want to create their own badges, they want to create their own rules and create their own scoring mechanics. I mean, that's really exciting for us.
Yeah, I really hated you because my small town doesn't really check in from Foursquare because most of my friends are in the States. I would be interested if you have any kind of numbers or rough numbers at least, how the adoption picked up once you opened it for everybody. And if you can see certain pockets, for example, that Europe is more mobile than, for example, in the US in certain areas, that would be nice.
This is going to be the worst answer ever, but we had all these amazing stats tools that worked when we were on the city model. And then once we stripped away the city model and started working everywhere, all the tools broke and we haven't rebuilt them. So we can see, I mean, the huge uptick in usage is related.
You do need to raise money.
What's that?
You do need to raise money.
We need more people. So if anyone's a Scala engineer and is looking for a job, let's talk after this. I mean, we launched the Facebook Connect stuff, which means that all the check-ins were going to Facebook just around the same time that we launched the Everywhere play. And the BlackBerry stuff was right on the heels of that. And it's hard to tell what is the thing that's really kicked it off. But in the last 30 days, it's like just usage has been off the charts. So you talk about the hockey stick, and we had that for a while, but now it just goes and it goes straight up, and it's 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 interesting and a little worrisome, but it's exciting, I guess.
Do you see an infrastructure issue like Twitter had in the beginning, the fail whale?
Well, we're still trying to figure out how to deal with some of the traffic spikes. So we had the luxury of being able to take the servers down whenever we wanted and update, and change the code however we want. And now we're just starting to go through that phase where we have to be really formal about it. And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from, we saw the troubles that they went through, and we know, okay, if we get really big, this is what's going to happen to us. So let's make sure to plan, 6 months in advance. And I think we've got an engineering team that
Plus
has definitely got their eyes on that.
investor that kind of helps as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're friends with all those guys too, so we can call up the guys from Twitter and be like, well, when we hit this, what's going to happen? The first time that we show up on a TV show, what should we expect? And so it's nice to have friends to rely on.
Have you had your Oprah moment yet?
No, I think, I don't know what that is. We were talking about that last night, like if there is an Oprah moment for Foursquare. I think we're a ways away from that, but we're just starting to do things where normal people know about Foursquare, which is, Dodgeball never made that leap, and I think it took Twitter a long time to do that. And we're in the very, very early stage of this, of this journey. But for people that don't read TechCrunch and people that don't read Mashable and read everything on Wired, like for those people to know what we're doing and to be excited about what we're using, or excited about the product in general, that's a big opportunity for us.
Go ahead.
Okay, my name's Wolf, and about 10 years ago I was hired by many international banks to do due diligence for the German companies popping up on the ground and trying to make some new applications. Now my question to you is on a totally different level. It's very humble and very simple, but maybe of extreme interest. Having been a DLD the couple of last years and seeing what you're doing and many other guys are doing, I always see this virtual world going backwards, not backward in the technology phrase, but backward in the sense that people in the end like to meet, like to see themselves, like to touch and feel them that we had with Tommy with 20 years ago and the rock opera. So I would like to know if these tools which you're developing right now have their specific image and their specific value, not just because of the technology, but because of some other things which are behind this technology and which may be some of the driving hidden forces to get you successful. Was this kind of question understood, or was it too sectarial?
Sure. Well, with the dodgeball stuff, it was our thesis at NYU, and the idea was, what if we just could put a whole bunch of dots on a map that represent where people are? Like, what would be the interesting ways to connect the dots? Would strangers want to meet strangers? Would people learn about new places to go? Would it help people connect? And we just kind of were making this stuff up as we went along. And with a lot of the lessons that we learned from Dodgeball are kind of in Foursquare now. And one of the things that we used to call it, it's like technology that facilitates serendipity. So by knowing where everyone is, it gives you this weird ability to kind of see around corners and see through walls. Where in New York, you can be walking down the street and you get these pings, and a friend is across the street, or a friend is 2 blocks away. And so it really changes the way that you that you experience a lot of this stuff. What we're seeing now as we grow a little bit bigger, we have to be kind of careful. Like when Alex and I were building Dodgeball, it was all about, oh, we want strangers to meet strangers, but not everyone wants that. And so we have to build the product so it allows people that just want to explore cities by themselves. It allows folks to meet and meet up with their friends. It allows folks to meet strangers, and it's difficult to kind of build all those things at the same time while still telling a consistent story about it. So, what we're hoping that by opening it up with the API, people can really build whatever they want. So if people want to use the data to make a dating service, they can do that. If they want to do it just to meet up with their best friends, they can do that as well. So I think it's, this is the first time we've had an API in any of the things that we've built, and it's great to just, see people taking, the data that we're generating and making products of their own based upon what they want out of it.
We have to wrap up, but when do you foresee New York Times using Foursquare as part of their offering?
Oh, I don't know. It could happen. It could happen this year. I mean, there's in the next 2 months, I think you're going to see a lot of interesting partnerships that we're doing with TV folks and movie folks and print media, and we're experimenting with this the same way that they're experimenting. Like they're like, okay, you guys are doing something interesting, and we say you guys have amazing content, and so we sit on the phone for an hour or 2 hours and we try to think up interesting things. And some of the stuff is going to work, and some of it's not going to. But we're at this point where we're this small, scrappy startup, and we just want to try a little bit of everything and see what sticks.
All right. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you all.